Hey guys, coming at you today with a delicious, soft, and fluffy keto pumpkin Swiss roll recipe. I'm super excited, so let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alicia and I'm a sous chef with a sweet tooth. And here we make delicious pastries, many from my time as a pastry chef. And my goal is to make the best keto desserts possible. So if you enjoyed these recipes, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hitting the thumbs up, and leaving me a comment. It all helps my channel grow and to bring you new keto desserts every Saturday. Today, a delicious fall dessert recipe, perfect for Thanksgiving or any time during the fall. It is so good and I'm super excited. Because I got a super soft, fluffy Swiss roll recipe, like a sponge cake, flat sponge cake. I took it straight from my pastry book and literally it's egg yolks, egg whites, sugar, which we're using Granular Monkfruit sweetener, and the recipe was cake flour. And I took that exact recipe and I made our cake flour with just unflavored whey protein isolate, a little bit of coconut flour, and a little bit of xanthan gum. And that's it. And those together, I got the perfect combination and we got a fluffy, soft Swiss roll that we can fill with whatever we want. This one's going to be pumpkin flavored and it's going to be filled with a pumpkin mousse recipe. Super excited to make this recipe again. I did testing and it came out so good. Took it to work. Everybody was in love with it. I have a bunch of women at work that were all like, can I try it? Can I try it? And they did. And they're like, I wouldn't change a thing. So I didn't. This recipe comes together super fast. So we got to start by preheating our oven to 400 degrees and getting our cake pan ready. Now, I don't know if this is a standard size or not, but I have a Wilton baking pan. It is, those are centimeters, 15.25 by 10.25. So that's the size we're going for. If you have anything similar sized, that would work. I'm gonna give it a little spray with avocado oil first, just to help our parchment paper stick. You just want a little bit to get it to stick to the corners and stuff. And I like this because it was just under the size of my parchment sheets that are already in a specific size. So I just make sure that you have parchment all the way up on all sides. If for some reason you're using a pan a little bit bigger, this will still work. Your cake might be a little bit thinner. But just make sure if your parchment paper doesn't go all the way up the sides, you grease your sides really well too. Then we also want to grease the parchment paper because we are going to use the parchment paper. We're going to roll this and we want the cake not to be stuck too bad to the parchment paper. Now that that's ready, I'm going to set it aside. I already preheated my oven. My eggs are warming right now because I forgot to pull them out earlier, so they're in hot water, well, warm water. And then we'll get on to separating some eggs. So this recipe does take 5 whole eggs. So the trick here is I'm gonna break into a separate bowl. So if I accidentally get an egg yolk in my whites, I won't contaminate all 5 of my eggs. Have my garbage can open too. So you want your egg whites and egg yolk in 2 separate bowls. But I'm putting my egg white into here, putting my yolk into there, and then transferring my egg white into there. That way, if one of these happens to break, I won't have to redo all 5 eggs. Yeah, I forgot. Good thing my yolk didn't break. Oh, see, it did in my hand. Like I said, this goes really fast, so you want to make sure you have all your ingredients ready to go. So we have 2 portions of sugar here, a 1/4 cup each. This is a separated egg sponge recipe. This is straight out of my pastry book. You whip your egg whites with some of the sugar, you whip your egg yolks with some of the sugar, and then you combine them. And then I have the aforementioned dry ingredients here, plus a pinch of salt and our pumpkin pie spice, which I don't prefer nutmeg. So I don't buy pumpkin pie spice. I make my own. I'll leave the recipe down below. I made a big batch of my pumpkin pie spice. So that's what I used in this recipe. And I weighed all those out ahead of time. I'm just gonna do a little sift on them and whisk them so that we don't have any xanthan gum not mixed in. Luckily, I just remembered I didn't put xanthan gum in my mixture here. That could have been bad. I was too worried about trying to measure the protein powder for you guys because I weigh everything and it's 38 grams. Kind of hard to measure. It's like a scooped right out of your protein powder, half cup, and then leveled out is what I got 38 grams or around there. So it's hard to do that. Like with protein powder, it's so like light and airy. It's hard to get an accurate measurement on it it all depends on how you scoop it. Give that a little whisk. You don't want pockets of cinnamon either. Ready to go. And then just a half cup or 122 grams of pumpkin puree. Make sure it is not pumpkin pie mix or filling or anything like that. Just pumpkin. The interesting fact, most of it's not pumpkin. It's mostly squashes that they like mix in with pumpkin. Okay, now that we have everything set up, I like to start with my egg whites. That way I don't have to clean my beaters when I go back and whip my egg yolks. It's gonna be too loud for me to talk, so I'm going to whip this until they start to get frothy and then start gradually adding in the granular Monkfruit sweetener. You're whipping this to stiff, glossy peaks. If you take it too far, it'll look like almost separated, like in big clumps. You don't want that. We're at soft peaks right now because your peak flopped over on you. When you pull it straight up, you want that peak to stay straight up. So a little bit more. Like that. That's a stiff peak. So we're going to set those aside and then on to the egg yolks. So I'm going to do the same thing with the egg yolks. You want them really pale and thick in consistency. That's when you know you're at the right place. And it's going to be probably triple in volume at least. This one you're going to want to scrape down a little bit because you're not getting as much volume as you are with the egg whites. Some of your sugars up there. Get one more scrape down and a little bit more, but it is almost there. See how pale it got? It's getting thick. That's what you want. There you go. Super thick and pale. Now I did try this with allulose and it was awesome. It was even softer of a cake. It was crazy, but it made it a little bit too soft to roll. It ended up cracking and breaking because it was just so soft with the allulose, but it was really, really good. So if you want to just make a sponge cake and layer it with like frosting, you can use allulose. It is a little bit less sweet though also, so keep that in mind. We're going to add a little bit of vanilla extract to this and our pumpkin puree. Give it a little whisk and then on to incorporating everything else. I'm switching to a big flat spatula because it's easier to fold in ingredients when you have a bigger spatula. It'll take you twice as long with a small one. Now we are mixing in our dry ingredients. It's gonna get really thick on you from that coconut flour. You want it all incorporated. No more white lumps in there. And then the folding process begins. So you're going to take your egg white and you're just going to fold in a third at a time. First third, you don't have to be as careful, but when you get to the last third, you want to be very careful to keep as much air in your mixture as possible. So I cut in and fold up. Go around the edge, fold up. Make sure you get down to the bottom. Keep rotating your bowl. A nice airy batter. And this does not taste eggy at all either. I love it. Once you're almost fully incorporated that first third, on to your second third. The biggest thing is getting down to the bottom. You see it's a lot darker down there. You don't want to miss any. Go. I remember making big batches of this kind of cake in school. We literally had our arms elbow deep in big mixing bowls, mixing in egg whites. Crazy. The last third, be very gentle with it. Okay, that's all the mixing I'm gonna do. And get our pan. I almost forgot my mini offset spatula. Jeez. Where is it? Oh, see, right on top of the drawer. I use it a lot. Pour all this batter in. Oh, if you do use allulose too, I would put the temperature of the oven down to 375. And it stays a little bit sticky on top when it's done, but it's still done. Spread this all the way out as thin as possible. Even as possible, I should say. It doesn't move any in the oven, so you want it nice and flat. So go up pretty much all the way to the top of the parchment paper if you're using the exact same pan as me. Okay, don't want to mess with it too much. You want to get this into the oven as quick as possible. So I'd say we're pretty even. It's only 9 minutes. I'm going to turn halfway through. I'm going to put 8 to 10 because it all depends on your oven. For mine, it was 9 minutes. While that's baking, I'm going to get ready to make our filling because as soon as it comes out of the oven, you can start your filling while your roll is cooling, and then you can put it right onto your cake and roll it up and get it in the refrigerator. So we'll be back to get that out of the oven and to start our filling. Okay, it was in there for 9 minutes. It's super soft and airy. Just starting to get a little bit brown. Perfect. We're gonna set this on a baking rack for a couple of minutes until we can touch it and get it off of the pan and let it cool for a couple more minutes while we get the filling going. So for this, it's basically my mousse recipe, only I added pumpkin. This cake is 14 grams of net carbs by itself. So whatever filling you put in it is what your carb count's gonna be. You can literally just make a cream cheese frosting and roll it up inside of here. If you wanna do that, check out my carrot cake cupcake recipe. I'll link it up there for you where I made a cream cheese frosting. It'll cut down your carbs a little bit because there won't be any pumpkin in it. There's many possibilities. But I'm gonna grab out my whipped cream because we want that standing by after we get the rest of our ingredients done. Okay, I'm just using this because it's way faster than my hand mixer. I'm gonna do 30 grams of powdered monk fruit sweetener. You do need powdered for this. You can use a Swerve confectioners if you want. You can technically add any of these ingredients into any portion of this process. I'm also gonna do a half teaspoon of vanilla in here. Whip that to stiff peaks. I had it up really high. Powdered sweetener everywhere. Stiff peaks. You want your whipped cream nice and cold, which is why I still had it in my refrigerator. But you want your cream cheese softened. So I actually pulled it out, but it wasn't quite soft. So I put it in the microwave, 50% power, 30 seconds, and it's perfect. We're gonna set that aside. Then we're just gonna whip up our cream cheese until light and fluffy. Add our pumpkin and a little bit of cinnamon. Tried to be fast and I lost my pumpkin. Get it all in there. Now scrape down a couple times. Add in your cinnamon. Just did a half a teaspoon. You can do more pumpkin pie spice if you want. I just like cinnamon. I'm gonna whisk this a little bit because I don't want cinnamon flying all over the place. My hand mixer is crazy. Make sure you get down to the bottom and see you got some white stuff and some cinnamon. Okay, so that's done. We're gonna set that aside. We're gonna get our cake onto the cooling rack. Now if you have any edges that weren't covered in parchment, you're gonna wanna get that loose. I had a little bit poking out there. Don't need this anymore. Just get it out of the way. Pan should be able to be handled now. It's on your cooling rack. So you want this not hot anymore, which is still pretty warm. So we're just gonna finish our filling. You're gonna take your whipped cream, you're gonna fold it into your cream cheese mousse mixture. This is good just on its own. If you wanna double this recipe and have half a batch just to eat by itself, it'd be delicious. So this filling adds 10 grams of net carbs to this pumpkin cake, this pumpkin Swiss roll. So if you do a cream cheese frosting, it's just cream cheese, butter, and confectioner's sugar. So it's gonna be a little bit less. Looks good. Peel the parchment away from this. Still a tiny bit warm. So we're gonna wait probably like 3 minutes and then we're gonna get it filled and rolled. Now you don't wanna wait too long because if it gets too cool, it's not gonna roll anymore. Still a little bit warm, but we're gonna get it off the cooling rack. Try to show you the best way to do this with the best camera angle possible. It's gonna be a little bit difficult. Kind of wish I had one that was down here or on my chest and you can just like see what I'm seeing. Put all your filling in. I don't go all the way to the edge. Man, trying to write this recipe, just this part is just so hard to figure out the best way to explain how to do this. Spread it all the way to the top. And I'm not even that great at it. I've only done this twice. I did it back in school, but man, that was 10, 15 years ago, something like that. Because you're gonna have this filling kind of squish out as you roll, so you don't really need too much filling down there. Maybe do like, just like an inch at the bottom. Go. Now you take your parchment paper And you start rolling it. You bend it over there. Use your parchment paper to kind of squish it. Use your parchment paper. Then when you're there, bring it back a little bit. I just use my hand. This is kind of like a sushi roll kind of thing. But you can also use a ruler and kind of push it. Kind of squeeze it. Want it nice and tight. That is our beautiful pumpkin Swiss roll. We're gonna leave it covered up, kind of squeezed in. We're gonna refrigerate for about an hour before we slice into this. See you back here when we slice into it. Okay, it's time to plate and decorate our pumpkin roll. So soft. Mine did crack a little bit, but it didn't on the first try, so it is what it is. Still gonna taste delicious. And I just thought about doing a little drizzle on top. I was just gonna dust some powdered sugar on top of it. I sifted my powdered sweetener and I put a little bit of cinnamon in it. And then I thought about it. You just add a little nut milk or heavy cream and whisk it up, and you're gonna get like a little icing to put on top of your pumpkin roll. So I just got a little bit of unsweetened cashew milk here. Pour a little bit in there, and I poured too much. This is what happens when you don't test things, you just go for it. So we're gonna need more powdered sugar. Powdered Monkfruit sweetener. I always forget how little liquid you need in powdered sweetener. Just a splash.
A few minutes later.
Finally getting thicker, but this is what happens when you don't test things. You just pour. I will test this again for you and have a good measurement, because you don't want this to happen to you. That's why I test the stuff. Okay, now that it's super thick and drizzly, let's do this. That looks delicious. We gotta cut into it. So we cut this into 10. It's 2.4 grams of net carbs. It is so soft. Oh my god. Can't wait to eat this. So soft and airy. Looks so good. Beautiful keto pumpkin Swiss roll. It looks so good. Do need a fork. It is like so soft and spongy. Like, it's so good. That icing's really good too. If you like more pumpkin flavor in there, definitely do the pumpkin mousse. It is so light and creamy. This dessert is super light and creamy. I might make this for Thanksgiving and not tell my mom I'm bringing it. Well, I just told her because she's probably gonna watch the video. But she doesn't like pumpkin. But I bet she'd like this. Filling is a little tang from the cream cheese. You get the pumpkin and the cinnamon. It is perfect balance. Perfect for this time of year. So good. So light and airy and fluffy. Hope you guys enjoy this recipe and you try this keto pumpkin Swiss roll out for yourself. It is so delicious. You don't even have to roll it. You can just layer it with mousse. It'll be amazing either way. It is so good. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe in the description box below. Hit that red subscribe button and the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys.